Well, I am so glad that you're here with an on purpose conversation. Today is going to be fun, and it's also going to be probably serious at times. But I'm so excited that you're here, and I'm so excited for our guest today. I've been knowing her for some years, and this conversation is going to be great. And the thing that on purpose
For how long?
conversation is about, it's about that's Siri talking to us. Be quiet, Siri. Um, the thing that on purpose conversation is all about encouragement, inspiration, as well as empowerment to be authentically you, to be inspired as well as empowered to be the best you that you can be. I started Leader's Image. Leader's Image is a like life coaching. I started that probably over 10, 12 years ago when I was teaching in children's ministry. And one of the things that I discovered was this word educara, and it's how I did children's ministry for years. It was all about drawing out of, it's a Latin word that means draw out of one, which is innately within them. And that's what I hope that Leader's Image and these conversations do, is to draw out the best of a person. But it's also not just drawing it out for them to be the best, but for them to affect those around them and make others the best. I like to say I'm inspired when I inspire others. And so that's what this conversation is. That's what it's going to be. And I hope after talking to our guest today that you walk away with some inspiration, some empowerment, some education even, and that these things will, these conversations will really bless your life and help you in where you're going. Now, that is our opening. It's been long enough. Let me bring our guest today. Our guest is Amy Dolan, and I'm going to have her introduce herself. And there you are.
I love it.
That is crazy. Well, we know that this is authentic, and this is totally us.
It's what it is. I mean, we got to stop striving for perfection at some point, right? It's
You know
just,
what?
it's life. We're just trying to live life out here.
You know what? It's funny. We were talking a little about authenticity before we came on, and something that that person I just showed, Esther Moreno, said is learning how to get past perfection, because perfection definitely can drag you down. It definitely can drag you down. I'm happy to talk to you because that, as I shared with you, my wife thinks you're one of the most authentic people I know. And she met me through me, and she's like, I love Amy. Amy is so authentically her.
The feeling is mutual, and we're just going to send like love back and forth the whole time.
Well, look, Amy, tell us who you are and just a little about yourself.
Okay, great. I'm Amy. I am mid 40s now. Woo, baby. Not sure how that happened, but mid 40s. Oh my gosh. But in the pandemic, I discovered Sephora. And so I feel like I've got good skin now. So that's good. So I'm okay being 45 with good skin. I live in Chicago. I live downtown Chicago with my husband, Kelly. We've lived in the city for 10 years in our same neighborhood that we love so much. We're city people at heart. Yeah. Kelly and I just celebrated 20 years married this year, which is wild, and 22 years together, which is just unbelievable. We're the proud parents of our 7-year-old pit bull, Maddox, who is the literal love of our life. Oh my gosh, we love him so much. And he is as I call him my wonderful weirdo, because he lives for like the goof and the entertainment. And I love that he is like literally the star of the neighborhood, and he brings joy and love to everyone.
He's a pretty dog too. He's a pretty dog.
I mean,
I don't know if that's a thing, if you can call a dog pretty, but he's a very pretty dog.
You brought it up, EC. So now that you've said it, I will just go with, you're the host. I will go with your conversation. But we do, when we're on walks, we do get that comment often. So you're right. It's a really cool story. My late aunt was a really well-known vet in Chicago, and we weren't really like animal people, me and Kelly. And before she passed, she told us that she felt like a pit bull would be what we needed in our family. And I don't know how she knew that or what she was. She's a animal whisperer, but after she passed, we went to the animal rescue and we saw him, and it's just like I feel like her energy like led us to each other. And it's been pretty wonderful. But anyway, enough about my dog.
Well, I know what your passion, one of your passions at points, it's your dog.
Oh my gosh. I currently work in food equity and food policy in the city, which is my passion. I love food. I love feeding people. And I love contributing to making food more accessible and equitable and affordable. And as I'm sure you know, EC, in the city of Chicago, everything is complicated and difficult and layered. And so it's really challenging work a lot of times, but I center my entire personal life and professional life around connecting people around tables of food. And so I just kind of live for like the family dinner, the dinners with Kelly, going out to eat, kind of all of it.
Well, and that's the name of your website, isn't it? Wider
Yes.
Tables.
Yes.
I love it. I love it. That is amazing. I almost want to stay right there for a moment because I was looking at some of your stuff online, and you have conversations with some major people around the city about food.
Yes. So my podcast, the Feeding People podcast, we talk about food and the way people feed each other and feed themselves. And it's just been amazing. We're launching our next season in January, which is, I'm so excited. Oh, the guests already lined up are so good. And it's just, I think like I could talk about this stuff all day because I feel like even if you're not passionate about cooking or you don't think about food all the time like I do, it's still, we all still have those moments of like, you can easily go back to a really great memory where you were around the table with someone and you were eating something and you had like a aha moment or a life-changing moment or a connective moment. And to me, like food has the magic, some sort of magic ingredient that does that for us. Like, of course, we have connective moments with each other when we're doing all sorts of things. But for me, like when you're intentionally sitting at a table and you're all like eye to eye, you're all eating the same food. There's something that happens that you either let your guard down or you say things a little more courageously than maybe you normally would. And then someone across the table says, me too. Same thing. And we can all, I've had a million moments like that, and I'm sure you have too. And I just want my life to be about like fostering more and more of that so that more people eat beautiful food and connect with each other. And my whole vision is like when you get up from a magic table like that, when you push your chair back and you stand up, you're like like you were saying, like a better version of yourself because of what happened at that table. You push your chair back, you get up, you go back to your life, and you're standing taller, you're inspired, and like you can go be who you need to be because of what happened at that table.
It seems to me that to that point, it seems to me that most food tables are equalizers. Everyone that sits there, you're all there for a meal. So that is the one thing that's going to equalize everyone in that particular place. And not only this, an old pastor friend of mine used to judge who you are and how involved and connected you are to people by, he
Mm.
would say, whose feet are under your table, whose
Mm.
knees are under your table.
Wow.
And to him, he said, that is what shows that there is some community and some equalization
Mm.
between you and another, some mutuality, is when you have feet under your table. And he would always ask the question, whose feet are those? Because
Wow.
if it's only yours,
Mhm.
only those who are like you, then you're missing out. To your point, you're missing out on the conversation, the life change, the development, the exchange, the
Mhm.
cultural exchange that sitting at a table
Yes.
does for over
Yes.
food. And there's a show that my wife and I watch. They're coming out with another season on Netflix. That's all around. It's High on the Hog, and it's
Oh,
all. Have you watched that?
best show.
Yeah.
You got to
And
keep like your Kleenex close by for that show.
exactly. And what we were just talking about it last night, and all the things that are discovered and learned through food and through those conversations about food and the culture and the nature of life that comes over that. We were just talking about that last night. It's
Mhm.
so amazing. So Amy, I mean, I think that is, and we'll talk a little more about that as we end, and just maybe you can kind of give us some more on what's coming up for you and any of those conversations you want to give us some insight on it. But let me ask you this: so we've known each other for some years. Let me first by saying, how are things by you? I hear you say that a
Oh
lot.
my gosh. Let's
I
just
hear
sit
you say that
back.
a lot.
Let's just sit back for this one.
What is that? What's the origin of that?
Oh, I don't know. How are things by you? I
Yeah.
don't know.
I hear you say that online a lot. So
Oh
just
my gosh. I mean, I think like okay, so you see me say that on Instagram because
mhm,
the best part of Instagram to me are the connections with people. Like
mhm,
when the DMs are happening, it's my favorite thing. There's like like real life friends that I have now that I met only through Instagram. And so that's the best part. So I feel like I'm always, I'm like sharing how I am, but I'm always turning it back. Like, how are things by you? Like to just continue to like foster, like this is a conversation. I want to have like relationship with all of you.
mhm.
But things are good today because the sun is shining and the sun shining, especially in the winter in Chicago, for me is everything because like too many gloomy days in a row is just
Yeah.
terrible for my mental health. So today's a
Yeah.
good day. The sun is shining. We're getting close to the holidays. How are things by you?
Things by me are pretty good. You said that, and it just made me think of um, being in Chicago, back in Chicago. It's funny. I've been back since 2019. My wife, she came back right before I did, and I kind of moved back really to date her. And well, I didn't tell you all the whole
Oh,
story.
you know.
But I came back quietly. Um, and being back in Chicago, I love it. I do miss Texas though. We both miss Texas. She was in
I'm
Dallas when
sure.
I was in Austin. But it's so funny you saying the gloomy days and all the days here in Chicago. We were neighbors for such a long time and
Oh my
didn't
gosh.
like literally lived across from each other for right before we left downtown. After we got married, it's like we were out walking, and it's like, wait, we just moved to this area. How long have you been here?
That was
Well,
literally
we
one
have
of the highlights of my year was
I
running
know.
into you, catching up, and then being like, "Where do you live?" And you literally said my intersection, and I was like, "Wait, what? That's where I live."
Yeah,
Where do
exactly.
you live? And then we saw each other. We run into each other all the time. And I'm not okay. So I'm not saying you did this intentionally, EC, but like you did move pretty recently after finding out we were neighbors.
Had nothing to do with no. So
We're
how
getting
about those
answers today
bears?
on this show. We're getting Straight to the truth today.
The truth. And the truth is, we honestly, we loved living there, but the truth is, we did not like our neighbors, not
Yes.
you guys, because you guys were across the street, but right next to us.
Wow.
They were so loud, and not when I say loud, I mean obnoxiously loud for hours.
Yeah, you
And
can't live like that.
no, no, no. It started at maybe 11:30 at night,
Oh my
and
gosh.
it would go to like 4 in the morning, 5 in the morning. Like really, seriously.
Oh,
And we hated so much. We loved the area. We were all supposed to have dinner,
I
and
mean,
we saw Kelly in the store, and we saw him in Mariano's, and we were like, yeah, so we're almost out of here. Because we really we love the area. We just could not handle that building.
yeah.
But shout out to Oak Park where we are now, and we love it, you know.
I'm
Uh,
so glad you're happy. And like where
yeah,
you live is everything. So
yeah,
if
yeah, yeah.
you do not like your where you
Oh yeah,
are, you got to
oh yeah,
go.
absolutely. Are you intentional about your space, like your house, your people, the people around you? Are you intentional about that?
So intentional. And this is something new for me though. I feel like maybe in the last year especially, so I'm like, I said about gathering people and tables, and I'm like
Mhm.
the extrovert of the extroverts. And so I used to just have like an open door policy, like you could just, if you want to come to dinner tonight, come to dinner tonight. There was like no filter whatsoever.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And I feel like some of the work I've done in therapy this year has been about noticing and protecting my energy. And what I've noticed is that it takes a lot of work to have good energy in my body. And
Mhm,
so
mm.
I think about all that work that I've done to have that good energy, and then I become super protective and nurturing of it. And one way that I do that is by being really, really protective of who now comes into our home and our space,
Mm.
because you can't just have like no filter and people coming and going all day, because people will bring bad energy in with them
Yeah, yeah,
and
yeah, yeah, yeah,
then leave. And now that energy is in my sacred home, my sacred space, and will be in my sacred body. And
yeah.
so it's been hard to do this year because I've never really lived like that. My parents are very like open, like I was just raised that way. Like anybody who needs a meal or come over, come over. And I
Mhm.
love that. Like I love that. But my good energy is too important for me. Kelly works hard on his good energy. And so we're constantly saying to each other when we're thinking about like, hey, should we invite them over for dinner? We're saying to ourselves, like, will they bring good energy into our home?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Great, let's do it. Or, we need their good energy, but this week is not going to work out because of
Yep.
whatever. So yes, so intentional, but that's new for me, and it's
Mhm.
hard to, but you learn like the same people don't always have good energy, the same people don't always have bad energy, so it's experimenting. But I'm very, very cautious of like who and what comes into our space in order that we can keep it as good in here as possible.
For you, is it a struggle because of how you were raised, or because we met each other in ministry, and not just like a small church? We both were working for these mega churches, like 25
Whew.
plus thousand
Oh my gosh.
members.
Oh my gosh.
So do you find that as a struggle to like pull back and not want to be on stage and not have a lot of people around you, and go and all of that? Is that a struggle for you?
I mean, yes, for sure. When I first left ministry, I left that mega church, my mega church that I grew up in, that I worked in forever.
Mhm.
I left there in 2016, and that, yeah, I mean, I started working at that mega church my junior year of college. And
Wow.
so like to transition from that life, not only like professionally, but also like mentally, emotionally,
Mhm.
relationally. I mean, I feel like that's most of the work I've been doing since 2016 because it's so deep in my body. So yes, of
Mhm.
course, like that's really hard. But I've had I actually met my therapist when I was in 2016 when I was leaving the church, and she specializes in life transitions.
Mm.
And I said to her, like, I don't know how to live like on the other side. I want the other side, but I don't know how to live the other side. I've never known
Mm.
anything else. And she's helped me do. I mean, I don't know where I would be with I saw her yesterday, And so yes, she has walked me through how to have a life. I am often saying she'll, tell me to do something and I'll say like, okay, so like for a normal person, what would that look like?
That's good. That's good. That's good.
Especially Sunday. I want to hear this from you. You see, like, especially Sunday mornings. I think we've talked about this before. Like,
Mhm.
it has taken me a very long time to just so many things on Sunday. Like I just still feel stressed and anxious on Sundays. I
Yeah.
tried for a long time to have Sunday fun day because that's what I heard everybody saying, and I
Yeah,
never knew what does Sunday fun day mean. I'd say to my therapist, like, I'm sorry, what do people do on Sundays? Like, break it down for me. I
yeah.
do not know. And she'd be like, oh my gosh, brunch, sleep in, go to
Yeah.
the movie. I'm like, that sounds amazing. But I have not known anything. So it's a process, and I have to be careful with I have to be kind to myself and saying like, literally my entire life until 2016 was the, rat
Yeah.
race of Sundays. And
Yeah.
so it's going to take an equal
Yeah.
amount of time to undo
Yeah.
that and reset. Right. But what
Well,
about you?
great question. What's funny is what was coming to my mind is like what deconstruction is. You hear this new terminology going
Yeah.
across even the Christian world of deconstructing Christianity or westernized at least Christianity. And I think for me that's exactly what I've been doing. It's funny you asked that because I just said to my wife on this past Sunday, we were on our way to church, and it was a challenge because I grew up in church.
Mm-hmm.
I've I've played instrument in church all my life since the age of 7.
Yes.
I was what I guess what you would call the prize child in church,
Yeah.
the Bible sword drills and all of that. I would always find the scripture, and
Yes.
I did speeches, eventually started preaching. I led choirs and all of that for years, and I'm 53 now.
Mm-hmm.
And I was saying to my wife on Sunday, we were both trying to, so we took this month where I pulled back. I've been serving at her dad's a pastor, and I've been
Mm-hmm.
serving at his church over the last probably 2 years, and teaching and playing instruments and all of that. And I told them I'm taking a month off. I just need this month. My wife and I, we have obligations we need to have, and so we've been visiting. But
Mm-hmm.
this Sunday was a struggle for me, and we were trying to go, but we just could not get
Mm-hmm.
it together. And I said to her, yeah, I remember walking to like the mirror in our hallway by the door, and I was like, we're really trying to struggle and do this because, and I said, for me, it's become such a tradition
Mm-hmm.
that when you don't have a plan, like you're not doing anything. She grew up as
Mm-hmm.
a PK, so she always had to go. Me,
Yes.
I used to I've said my mother had a drug ministry because
Mm-hmm.
every time the doors of the church was open, she drugged me to church. And um, so now as an adult and not being in like full-time ministry, serving at her dad's church is quasi volunteer, and it's not like I'm on staff every day of the week. So it's hard when you're not doing anything. And I remember you saying to my wife, we
Uh-huh.
were all talking and saying like,
Uh-huh.
did like, is this a thing? People can really like stay home on Sundays. And so we ended up, we drove around, we were going to go to church where I wanted to go, which was the church I grew up in. I texted a friend and said, what time do they start? And they told me, and we were leaving, and it's like a 40-minute drive to get out there. And she looked at the gas tank and she said, hey, you have like 48 miles left in the tank. I was like, oh, I got to get gas. I was like, well, looks like it's no church. And then the question was, well, what do we do?
Yeah.
She's used to it. I'm purposely, but she's done that. She's been there. She's done that she has a t-shirt. She's like, I don't have to do church ever again, but I don't want to put
Right.
her business out there. I let her speak for herself. Maybe I'll have her on one day and we'll talk about it.
Oh
But
my gosh, please.
for me, it was kind of like, well, what do we do? And we ended up going to brunch, and we had some amazing vegan. And we'll talk a little about that because I'm vegan. So speaking of food,
Yeah.
and well, she is too. And we went to like a vegan Mexican restaurant, and we sat and ate, fully dressed, enjoyed it, went to the grocery store, and came home, and we felt like, wow, we still accomplished community. We still walked away. I don't know where during any of that time we lost what we believed about God.
Wow.
I don't
Wow.
think we I don't think we lost anything of what we believed about our marriage and who we are as individuals. So, I think the struggle is sometime thinking what other people would think about us,
Yes.
because we don't
Right.
do that anymore, or we don't do it like
Yes.
they do it. And it's kind of this attachment to perform. It's performative Christianity.
Yes. And, you see, like the church I grew up in and worked in and pastored in is a predominantly white evangelical megachurch. And I was part of the thinking that was like, Sunday morning church attendance is like a measure of your faith. And
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
if, I really like bought into the mindset and judged honestly like the people who didn't go to church on Sunday
Yeah.
morning, right? And like
Mm,
help
mm,
to keep that like toxic theology going as a pastor. And so some of like the being okay with not going to church on Sunday morning for us is like having to undo some of that own, like, I don't exactly what you're saying. Like I feel so happy and faith-filled and myself and connected to Kelly when we're, enjoying a delicious brunch and going on a walk and just being slow even on Sunday. Like our bodies don't know how to even be slow on Sunday mornings. And we always look at each other and we're like, do people know they have this option? like, like I didn't know this was an option to feel like this on Sunday. And if anything, I mean, for me anyway, in this moment in my life, like this feels more Sabbath
mm,
than like
mm,
the rush and panic and stress for us in
mm.
like working in a church. This feels way more like slow, enjoyable, like not productive.
Mm.
And those aren't really gears we know most of the week. And so to really like be in that gear on Sunday morning feels hard, but like very Sabbath-esque. And it's nice.
You're hitting so many things. If I can be a little transparent here, there's a certain amount of nervousness coming over me now, and
Yeah.
unease, not because the conversation scares me, but it digs in a place that is touchy
Mhm.
because you're people, and and the truth is it's all around people. A lot
Mhm.
of times we just what you just said, we we have sat in those seats and have looked at
Yes.
people on Sundays and throughout the week, and it's a judgment seat. It's a
Yes.
seat of you should know better. It's not even let me help you get better. It's
Yeah.
a you should know better.
Yeah.
And I think now what I think, even as we're talking about it, what I feel is this for years I was trained this way. For years I thought this way. For
Yeah.
years, and even now, there are conversations that I hear as though if they are the all that ends all,
Yeah.
the be all that ends all. This is what you do. It's who you are. And when you're not that, when you're not, what are you doing with your life? What are you doing
Right.
with um it, it- so let me ask you this. um has there ever been a point in your life that you wanted to do something else, and is that now what you're doing? Like,
Yes.
how did ministry begin for you, and was there something before that that you were like, oh, this is really where I want to be?
Yeah. Oh, what a great question. I always wanted to be a teacher. I loved kids. I wanted to educate. I thought I would be like an elementary school teacher. And then I went to Bible college and they were like, you can teach children in the church. And I was like, say what? And get paid?
That's
That
the
sounds
thing.
like just teach kids the Bible, not math.
Yeah, yeah,
Oh,
yeah,
got it. Okay. This was like new to me. I grew up, so my mom is Jewish and my dad was Catholic. And so I grew up with both traditions. And then
yeah.
we didn't move to the evangelical megachurch until when I was in high school.
Okay.
So I have a lot of like faith traditions in me. And I didn't really know children's ministry was a profession per
Mm,
se that you could get paid for. And so I changed my major in college and became a children's ministry major, and then started working in curriculum specifically at my church. And then, like, the minute I graduated, they hired me full time to write curriculum and teach children. And so I did that for a long time. Curriculum, teaching, became a family pastor here in the city at the same church. And you see, listen.
be real, be real. You'll be you.
When you work in the church that long, I mean, you really don't even need to work. Sorry, you really don't even need to work in the church that long. But when you
Hmm.
work in the church that as long as we have, you see a lot of things.
Yeah.
And like you see the real bad, like behind the stage, behind the scenes, that, like, I always say people would be shocked about, but like it's kind of all, like, I feel like there's like a little bit of a church reckoning happening right now, so you are seeing it.
Hmm.
But the behavior I would see, the way people would treat each other, the way leaders would treat each other, it just was so it was, yeah, it was bad. And really the breaking point for me was when I was a family pastor and I witnessed firsthand my best friends who were, also part of the church, experienced racism, experienced homophobia. And it was just like, that was just the break. I mean, I had seen that in all sorts of ways for as long as I'd been in the church, but when it was like my best friends firsthand, it was just like, I was like, what am I doing? Like, what am I doing? Because if I continue to be a leader in this context, I will be forwarding, like, I will be advancing those things. And I couldn't live with myself like that. I don't want to be a person who is working hard and advancing racism. Like, that's not who I want to be. I
Yeah, yeah,
don't want to be a person who's advancing homophobia. Like, we just, I, no,
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
want my life to be built in a way where I like am able to contribute against those things.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
And so that was the breaking point for me. I was like, I can't be part of this like anymore. And actually like left that. And at the same time, a group of us were having regular Sunday dinners together. And
Hmm.
we formalized that into what we call Sunday Supper Church, where we started meeting about 30 of us regularly for Sunday dinners and like faith connection around tables. And we did that for 5 years. And it was just like the most wonderful, beautiful thing I'd ever been a part of. But in doing Sunday Supper Church, I started to build relationships with local farmers here in the city and in Illinois, local food pantry leaders, because we were centering what we were doing around food. We were always
Hmm.
trying to get more food to the community in order to feed more people. And
Yeah.
it was in kind of doing, building those relationships with other people who were doing great food work in the city that I was like, that is just 100% where my heart was. And, you know, it's crazy, but you'll understand this. I do yoga most mornings. And one morning I stood up to do my tree pose, and literally God said to me, your journey as a pastor is complete.
Mm.
And I had this visual of like a circle that I had like, oh, I still get chills saying it. Whew. Um, it's like I had this visual of a circle that I had started at a young age. I had done all sorts of things. I'd even like created this dinner church, and I was complete. And I just, oh, it was so clear and vivid. And I just felt God saying, I'm so proud of you. You did such good
Mm.
work, but like this journey is complete.
Mm.
And, you know, when it's that clear, you just
Yeah.
have
Yeah.
no choice but to be like, okay. So, kind of like transitioning then into the food equity space with the relationships that I had built felt very like natural. And, yeah, I mean, it's really, this feels like my second career. It feels like the second part of my life. And it's been very challenging also, like to start a new, I've only known one career and one thing, and that's where
Yeah.
all of my connections are, all my networking, all my expertise, my confidence. And to just kind of leave that behind and say enough is enough and start something new in your 40s is really, really hard. It's really hard. But
Yeah.
without that piece of God being so clear, like I
Yeah.
have never, people ask me all the time, like, do you miss it? Do you want to go back? I'm like, of course I miss things about it, but like
Mhm.
I have no regrets because God was so kind and tender and generous and clear with me that I'm like, I don't, how would I even go back?
Yeah.
How do you like complete a circle and then start again? Like I
Yeah.
don't know how
Yeah.
you do that, right?
Yeah. You know, it's funny you say that. So, two questions kind of came up to my mind, and I was actually thinking about this early this morning as I was thinking about us going to have this conversation. Um, People need encouragement when it comes to starting over. Um, and so I'm going to kind of combine these questions together into one, but to kind of set it up, you know, I was thinking about when people like yourself, like myself, who have accomplished a lot. I remember, and I was thinking about this. This is what made me come to this point to ask you this question. I remember earlier on, so I was in ministry even prior to working at the mega church I worked at for several years, and I worked with children. And I remember earlier on in becoming the children's pastor, and I asked someone once, very, very poignant person who was I respected a lot. I asked them, what happens when you have a fear of success? Sort of this,
Mm-hmm.
what's the syndrome called? Imposter syndrome.
Mm-hmm.
I asked them, you know, about it's kind of the rat race. And when you see your projection and where you're going, how do you handle that? How do you handle success and all of that? And their response to me was, in front of everyone, was, who said you were successful?
Mm-hmm.
And it hurt, and it pushed
Mm-hmm.
me down, kind of bringing in some of what you talked about when you start seeing behind the scenes and you start seeing stuff.
Yes.
um And you kind of get to that point that you said where enough is enough. But there are people who get to that enough is enough, and then they, to your point earlier, they struggle into make that turn. And so the question is, when you feel that life now is taking you on a pathway or a new pathway to purpose, how do you stay intentional? In your opinion, this may not be one of the questions I forward you, but how do you stay intentional about following that new pathway? You kind of referred to it a little about, yeah, wanting to go back and all of that, but how do you stay intentional about a new pathway? And even seeing that because you're a visionary person. I saw you say something about your Enneagram of being a 7,
Yeah.
and I want you to talk a little about that. But how do you be intentional about that?
I mean, it's so hard. It just like the daily living, just living life daily is so hard. And so
Mhm,
to stay intentional, especially with your career when it's changing, but you've got reality of rent and food and family. And it's just like, it's really hard. And I mean, honestly, like this year, I've had a million thoughts about, not going back, but like, am I doing the right things? Because, I don't know, like I was taught, God's, there's just such a weird mix of like capitalism and career success mixed in with
mhm,
our
mhm,
faith traditions. And so,
mhm.
my brain tells me like, well, if you're doing what God wants you to do, if you're living intentionally in your career, then you'll have promotions and you'll get more money and you'll have advancements and you'll get lots of job interviews. And so like when that's not happening, like
Mhm,
has happened a million times for me this year,
mhm.
I'm like, my first thought, of course, is like, am I on the wrong track? Is God punishing me? Should I go back? And it's just like,
Exactly.
no, that is not the God I know and believe in this universe. And we have to like the best we can detangle capitalism from our faith because that's actually what Jesus says are like, blessed are the poor, blessed
Yeah.
are those who are hungry. And so like, I don't know. Sometimes I'm like, wait a minute, does like more money, more job success actually mean like you're in trouble? Like that's a warning sign with God. So
Mm.
it's hard. Like it's hard to navigate. It's hard to figure it out. I just keep coming when I'm confused or lost or can't make sense of what's happening. Like, wait, I'm being intentional, but the opportunities aren't matching. I
Mm.
just have to keep coming back to myself however I can, right? Like, who am
Yeah.
I? What do I love? You got to ask like one or two people you who know you.
Yeah,
Kelly
yeah,
and Kelly calls himself the Amy historian, right? Which means like
I love that.
I forget who I am, or just I'm trying to
Mhm.
be Amy
Yep.
every day and I forget who I
Mhm.
am. And he
Mhm.
says, wait, I know Amy 10 years ago, 15 years ago, and she is this. And so that is who you are now. You can
Yeah.
come back to that. And I'm like, oh, yeah, right. That's who I am. Right.
Yeah, that centers you. And so because the church tells you that pastoring and all of that is like you should retire or die in the position. God
Yes.
doesn't
Right.
change any of that.
Right.
You're once a pastor, you're always a pastor. But the question is, do I have to pastor from the stage? Do I have to pastor in a building? Or like yourself, maybe it's over. And
Right.
the peace that you get from that makes you kind of move on. So speaking of those passions and the pastor and all of that, I see a lot of posts of you doing fashion stuff now. Where does that motivation come from?
Oh my gosh. This conversation has got it all and I love it.
Oh, we got a good 15 minutes, almost
I
20
love
minutes.
it.
So there's a little more.
Okay, all right, good. That's a preview. Um I mean, I don't know. I've always loved fashion. I love style. I feel like it's my creative expression of myself and it's fun. And I love to think about my clothes. I love to think about my style. I love to present myself in a certain way. And I used to be like fast fashion, quantity, 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 quantity kind of girl in fashion. And I think some of that was like, I noticed, before we would do our big, workshops at the conferences and stuff, I would be nervous, of course. And I would go to the mall and get a new outfit, get a new fast fashion outfit, and somehow that would like make me feel better, like, okay, you're going to be okay tomorrow because you got, and then I would just accumulate. And one day I realized, like, this is just too, like, my closet is just overflowing. It's filled with like garbage clothes, and I just literally like donated everything, sold everything, emptied it out. And I like slowly rebuilt my closet very minimally with pieces I loved and that made me feel good. And I mean, most of my clothes I've had for like years, and my closet now is like my pride and joy. And I asked Kelly, actually took the doors off of it for me so I could just see it every day when I walk by. It makes me so happy. And yeah, I just, I kind of stopped caring about dressing for other people, and I just wear what makes me feel good and what I want to wear that day. And I hope that, I post those videos on Instagram just in the hopes that people do that for themselves. I want people to wear clothes that feel good for themselves and that, helps them express themselves. And I've had a few opportunities to style friends and family this year, and it's just been so fun. Like, it's just, I mean, it's honestly like a form of pastoring, because it's about bringing out the best in what is in somebody, which I think is what the best pastors do. They're like, who are you? What is in you? And how can I call that forward?
Educare.
Yeah.
Latin word, educare. It means to draw
Right.
out of one what is innately within them.
Right, exactly. So what about you, EC? I want to hear about your fashion. Tell me about your fashion, because this sweater is really nice.
I told my wife that I wore this specifically for you.
Oh,
because of the color, because you're fashion forward. And so it's Banana Republic.
Love it.
But it's funny you asked that. When in high school, actually, I was best dressed. They have those things that you like, going to be the best or the next da 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 da, all of that. Mine was best dressed. I actually wore suits in high school.
I feel like you would show up to some of the children's ministry conferences in suits and like really nice jackets, and people be like, the children's ministry people, no offense, but we're dressing like that.
What's funny is I was that way intentionally for several reasons. Number one, I was a black man, and sometimes we have to actually I am a black man. We have to sometimes overthink in presentation. And it goes back to what I was going to say. When I was younger, my birth mother. So I was raised by my great aunt and great uncle, but my birth mother, we went shopping, and I was 12. I was 12. It was seventh grade. She took me to this outlet in Kenosha, Wisconsin. And when we got out to the car, we left. I remember specifically, we bought some socks, some Argyle socks. This is back when Polo, Ralph Lauren, Lauren polos, and the jeans were, I can't remember, Sasson or something like that, but penny loafers and all that. We bought penny loafers. We bought Ralph Lauren polo shirt, and we bought these Argyle socks. And when we got to the car, we left out of J. Crew. And back then, like, J. Crew was just a dream.
Oh, 100%. Yes.
And we got to the back of her car. She let up the trunk, and as we were putting the stuff in the trunk, she stopped and intentionally looked at me. She took the socks out. She took the shoes out. She took the shirt out and laid them on the back. And she said, this is how a young man dress
Wow.
when they want
Wow.
to go places.
Wow.
She said, this is how a young man dress when they want to present a certain thing and present in a certain way. And she said, you as a Black young man have to be intentional when you walk into spaces. And
Mm,
sometimes that means the way you dress. You cannot dress with like everybody else, and you
mm,
can't blend in if you're going to make a difference. She's
mm,
like, you make a difference in what you say and how you show
mm.
up. But she says, in how you present yourself, because they see you before they hear you. And I was
Wow.
like, wow.
Mm,
And so she showed everything to me and she said, this is how I want you to dress from now on.
mm,
You are dressing to not just impress, but to show up well.
mm,
And so from 7th grade on, I started
mm.
reading the GQ magazine at 13
Wow.
years old. And to this day, I still look in it. It's changed a lot. But I remember being talked about in high school. This one girl said to someone else who came back and told me, it's like, EC never matches. He wears all of these like uh, suits and pants and stuff, but it never matches. And what she meant was I didn't dress like all the other kids. I didn't wear
Mm.
I remember when Gucci shirts was, I tried to wear a Gucci sweatshirt that I bought from the flea market. It
Uh-huh.
wasn't me.
Yes, yes.
But I tried to do all of the fashion stuff and it just wasn't me. So I
Mhm.
went back to like, I would wear these slacks, these sometimes herringbone and checkered looking slacks.
Mhm.
I said that to my wife the other day about herringbone, and she was like, who says that? Who says herringbone? um, but I had on these I remember wearing these herringbone slacks once, and this shirt that was totally different pattern and all that. But that's what the fashion was. The secret to a lot of American fashion was England and London fashion,
Mhm.
and
Yes.
they're like 2 to 3 years ahead of us. And so you always knew what was going to come out
Yes, yes,
based
yes.
upon what they were wearing. So I would wear it. I would find the clothing in my dad's closet. I wore a lot of his stuff. I in 8th grade, I remember my favorite class was home ec because I learned how to sew and I learned how to make my own stuff. So I
Oh
would
my gosh.
this stuff. This is a lot of stuff. This conversation isn't supposed to be about me.
I mean, are you thinking what I'm thinking, that we need to have a fashion show? Like,
Oh,
is
we
this
need
not a fashion show like a runway show, but like a fashion podcast?
to
What
make.
are we
Hey,
what are we doing?
so I had always said that I was going to be a friend of mine, Melanie. Back then in high school, her name was Melanie Brown. We grew up together from 7th grade all the way through. And Melanie always said she was going to do advertising, and I said I'm going to do marketing, and we're going to have a clothing brand called Cornelius Brown. It was my middle name and her
Yes.
last name. And she went on into advertising. I went into marketing in college, but never really finished the fashion thing. But I wanted a fashion line called Cornelius
Oh my
Brown.
gosh.
That's
You
a
need
little
to do
something
this, EC. Come
that we
on.
need to, maybe we could do that. You're digging in the crates, girls. But secretly, that is my thing. I love dressing and all that. So, but this isn't about me. It's
Okay,
about,
but like at least like can you just start posting your outfits on Instagram or something?
I maybe I'll do that. I'll do
Okay.
that.
All right. All right.
Or I'll start an Instagram that's on the side of maybe fashion. I don't
Oh
know
my
what I'll call
gosh.
it. I did start something that I wanted to do when I was a kid. Speaking of fashion or whatever, so I started growing a beard, and I've always wanted a perfume line. My aunt, who was an entrepreneur, she had a perfume line, and I started a beard line. So I really don't talk about it. I
Oh
showed
my
it
gosh.
in the last song. It's called The Essence of E. I have this sitting
Oh
right here.
my gosh.
Will it there it is. It
That's
does.
amazing.
So it's called The Essence of E. It's beard oil and beard balm. And actually I've used it for it's vegan. One version of it is vegan, the other is vegetarian. But all the ingredients are natural. And I started using it about a month and a half, 2 months ago as a test, or prior to me testing out, and my beard started growing, as well as the one thing it's not doing, it's not breaking off now. Because it's all about the
Wow.
ingredients. So
Wow.
fashion and what do you call that? I won't say cosmetology, sort of. It kind of runs in my family.
Yeah.
My aunt was a model and all of that. Both two of my aunts were. So wow, this is a lot
Let's
about
get
me.
this going, EC.
Yeah, well,
Let's
maybe we could
get this
do
going. Just test it on the Instagram and let's see how it goes. I mean, that's the thing. You're saying you're going to have a separate account. That's fine.
Mhm,
But like
mhm,
for me, what I've found is like having one account where I show all the different sides of me is,
mhm.
I think, what often leads to the authenticity, people feeling like I'm authentic because it's just that's who we all are. Like,
Yeah,
you
yeah, yeah.
know, my Instagram was all about pastoring and faith. And then I like transitioned more to food. And then this year I was really nervous about like posting more about fashion and like what would people, and it's just like,
And cooking.
I'm a whole person here. Like I have a lot, like I'm sure everyone will be just fine if they see an outfit and then a dinner and then a thing about my day. Like, and if not, fine also. But like you got to show all the sides, you
Yeah,
know?
and you cook too, speaking of all the sides. So my wife is always looking at your meals, almost showing me what you're cooking and all of that. What's your go-to?
Oh, I mean, Monday nights, I love making salmon and vegetable. I love vegetables so much. That's my go-to. I love making breakfast. Yeah, just like simple, comforting. Kelly's a vegan and I'm not a vegan, but I love vegetable forward things. And so a lot of nights we're eating the same meal. I'm not going to make or I'm just going to make like a tweak on it, which is really fun. So like the other night I did like sort of a bangers and mash situation, but it was like mashed potatoes. And then like I did his like vegan Italian sausage. I did my chicken sausage and then some peas. And it was like we had the same meal, but like he had his vegan sausage, I had my chicken sausage. And that's really how I like to cook because so I watch a lot as we go to things, we go to parties, we go to events, and Kelly can literally eat nothing. I don't know if y'all experience this too. He has a really severe dairy allergy also. And so like he can't, like a lot of times there's just cheese and everything or dairy and things, but then there's not, like most things have meat also.
Yeah, yeah,
And
yeah.
so I've just watched over the years as like we're all excited, we go to a party and then he has like 3 pieces of lettuce with no dressing. And I was just like really over that. And so I've centered a lot of my cooking around like how can we all be having the same meal, because
Mm,
that's what's connective. Like it shouldn't be like, if my brother and sister-in-law come over for dinner and the 3 of us are eating this like delicious, sauce lasagna, and I'm
mhm.
like, Kelly, I made you, like a PB&J. It's like you kind of going to lose the magic of the table.
Exactly, exactly.
So I always start with that. I'm like, if is it possible to have one meal that we can all eat
All
together?
enjoy. Yeah, yeah, yeah,
Because
yeah.
you know what? Like people, I don't know if you found this. Like
Mhm.
if it's delicious, like people don't care if it's vegan. You know
Yeah,
what I
yeah, yeah.
mean? Like
That's true.
lasagna
That's
is
true.
lasagna. And so if
That's
you're like, we're
true.
having lasagna, oh, by the way, there's no like ground meat or cheese in it or like dairy cheese in it, but it's delicious.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
It doesn't matter,
Yeah, yeah, yeah. That. So we have. I'm going to take us probably over about five. Are you good?
Yeah.
Okay, because we reached the hour mark. Let me kind of end with this, and then we got 5 things, a rapid round. You know that was
Ooh.
coming,
Woo.
and so.
Okay.
Um, but before we end,
Flow.
let me ask you, and I want to kind of take you back into something. I asked you about Enneagram because as you were talking about the food and all of that, it made me think of who you are as a person. Um, uh, so intentionality, we talked a little about that. When it comes to who you are but let's say you're encouraging someone, um, you during this holiday, that's what made me think about it. During this holiday, I saw you post something, speaking of food and cooking and all that. You posted something called low key. You even a while back or a week or two ago, you posted something about your therapist saying that you needed to how did you had like 3 steps or
Yeah,
something.
yeah,
Can you
yeah,
explain a little about that?
yeah,
It was encourage. I'm just going to read what I saw. You posted something about uh, fighting seasonal depression
yeah,
and what you and Kelly came up with to
yeah.
help that. Can you kind of talk a little about that?
Yes, so happy to. 2023 has been the worst year of
Mm,
probably our lives. We have just had a lot of very difficult things happen this year, and we have been fighting for our mental health and our optimism and our hope like we have never fought before. And we are like, in that we have found like such deep partnership and connection with each other, which has been amazing.
mhm,
But um as we were going, well, I always suffer seasonal depression, like the worst in January, February, March, after the excitement of the holidays comes down. And so every year my therapist is like, "What are you doing?" And I'm like, "Why do you have to ask me this every year?" She's so annoying because she's so right about everything.
uh,
And this year she was like, "You have like I am suffering from depression right now from the events of this year." And so
mm,
she
mm,
recently was like, "And we are going into January. Like, how are you?" And I was like, "Oh my gosh, what are we going to do?" And she said,
mm,
"You have to be proactive. You cannot wait until you are feeling the lowest of the low in the middle of January. You have to be proactive." So we've been
mm.
figuring out ways that I can be proactive. And yesterday she had the audacity to say, "Could you imagine if this January was your best January ever?" And I was like, "Okay, calm down." Like, it's like, okay. But I actually was like, what if my like really fighting this like depression and seasonal depression this year, like very proactively instead of waiting until I was down, did give me my best January yet. So I found a local indoor pool because I'm trying to like simulate summer for myself, because summer is my happy time. Heat, sunshine is what makes me happy. And so I found a local indoor pool. I've been going there as much as I can just so I can feel like the heat and the steam, and like when my body is in the pool, it makes me think it's summer. And that's been really, really nice.
Yeah,
Um, I've been going to the Garfield Park Conservatory for the same reason, so that I'm like hot, and
yeah,
it's I can see flowers and plants and greenery, which makes me feel like it's summer. And
yeah.
then I really like to eat locally. I really like to eat seasonally, but this year I'm trying to just like eat some like summer berries and like summer tomatoes, just get them from the grocery store to like simulate, like the joy of the most delicious blueberries in the middle of the summer. Like, oh, look at you have a blueberry in December. Isn't that nice? So they all these things like sound really silly as I'm saying them out loud, but like that's what we have to do. I think that's what
Yeah.
I have to do to fight. Like depression is so overcoming, and so it's such a weight. And so whatever energy I have to fight it, I'm gonna fight it.
Mm, mm,
Mhm.
mm. I'm sitting in that for a minute because it sounds like on what you're doing to fight depression and doing to move forward, new year 2024, is you're putting making your surrounding, we kind of talked about that earlier, you're kind of bringing things from other places, whether that's the
Mm.
summer or
Mhm.
something that rings and speaks to you, bring that to where you are. And it goes back to we talked about, being intentional about our spaces. How do you think, are you uh, how do you think people should prepare for like a new year? Are you
Mm.
a theme person? You're a resolution person? Are you a what is the other goal? What are you?
Mhm. I mean, to to borrow a famous line, from someone well, just girl be you, like,
I wonder who this is.
just girl be you, because I mean, listen, whatever is going to get you to January 1st and beyond, do that. January is so hard. And so, like, sometimes resolutions, I got no energy for that. Sometimes goals, I got no energy for that. Sometimes it's a word, you just got to do what is right for you. And if that means, like, the Nap Bishop and the Nap Ministry, oh, I love her so
My
much.
wife talks about that a lot.
She's like, listen, we have to follow nature. Everything hibernates and shuts down in winter. Yeah. And then there's us who's like, January is like my new best. And she's like, are y'all crazy? Like,
yeah.
No. And so, I mean, like, sometimes I'm just like, if I successfully hibernated or made things quieter in January or just a little softer, I would be going with the energy and the flow of nature and the natural world. And like, maybe that would be a great goal, because that would be really hard to do, so I don't know. I'm just trying to make it to January, and I'm trying to, like, I want to be like, I want to feel better. I want to be optimistic. I want to be more me in January. And so we'll see, however I can do that. Right. And that's what people should do. Like, just do what's right for you.
Do what's right for you. That's good. We're going to get to our rapid questions. Let me ask you, this isn't part of your rapid questions. What are you reading? What are you reading?
What am I not reading? It's been a good reading year. I am literally like 30 pages away from finishing Maya Angelou's I Know Why the Caged Bird Sings.
Wow. That's on the ban list. You know that, right?
I hope so, because that has been a banned kind of reading year for me. And then I always got to have a book on the docket, because I get panicky, like, if I don't have a book to go to. And so last week, actually, at the thrift store, I picked up this book called Forked. That's about the kind of like messed up restaurant. Have you read it?
No, I saw that.
It's like the messed up, like, restaurant culture industry. And so I'm really excited to get to that. Yeah.
I love it. All right. Rapid questions. And so you kind of know what the first one is. Hopefully you know that. But it's 5 questions. You answer them. It's usually 5 Fs.
Let's go. All the Fs. Let's do all the Fs. I got all the Fs to give today. You see?
You give an F, huh?
I got them. Got them all.
All right. Here's your first one. Favorite scripture.
Okay. Favorite scripture. Genesis 1:26. All people made in God's image to reflect God's divinity and spirit is just like every part of my essence and being. And, on the days I need to come back to myself, I'm like, I reflect the divine. I'm made to bear the image of the divine. And even like my purpose in life is to see that in others. And that's how I want to live. I love that.
I love it. Favorite family activity.
Eating. I love our dinners together, are the best. And then Kelly and I, we walk Maddox at night. We used to see you. That was nice.
Yeah.
But walking, like doing walks together at night all together, is the best.
I love that. I thought you were going to say that. All right. Speaking of that, your next question, rapid. Would you rather walk 2 miles up a mountain or run a half a mile in a desert?
Neither.
That's what I knew you were going to say. I knew you were going to say
that. Can I watch a Bulls game instead?
There you go. Best advice a friend has ever given you.
Oh no. That's a good one. I mean, honestly, like one time I was really hemming and hawing on something, and she was just like, just do it. Like, do it tomorrow. And I was like, tomorrow? And I did it. I did it tomorrow, what she told me to do and what I was hemming, and it kind of changed everything for me.
I love it.
Just got to do it sometimes.
Got to do it. If you were given $10,000 cash for your home, what would you buy?
Oh, I would probably redo some parts of the kitchen, and then, I mean, how could I say more clothes after I said I got rid of all my clothes?
That, that's an Amy. So as we draw to close, what do you have coming up? What's on your agenda coming up? I think you talked about it earlier, but I want to circle back to it and what's coming up for you.
Yeah, thank you. Okay, so we are launching our next season of the Feeding People podcast in January.
Mhm,
We have
mhm.
3 amazing guests lined up. I'm so excited. So you can go to, whitertables.com. You can go to all the episodes that we've done in the past are there. We're going to do more of that. And then I'm doing food consulting, event consulting. And so if you need any type of nonprofit leadership consulting, or you want to think intentionally about your next gathering, the way that you put, people together for meaningful conversations, things like that. I got a lot of consulting work like that coming up in the new year. So
Nice.
yeah.
Can people reach you if you want them to reach you? I actually
Please
asked a
reach
question
me.
down this.
Reach
How can
me.
people reach you?
Reach
Do
me.
you want them to reach you?
Yes. Yes. And always on Instagram too.
Okay.
Underscore A Dolan. That's where that's where it's all
Underscore
happening.
Eagle. Okay,
Hmm.
I love it. Well, Amy, this has been like one of the best conversations I've had, and this is only the
Aw.
second, so that's why it's been one of the best.
Oh my gosh. I did not see that coming. I did not see that coming. That was so good. That was so good.
But no, honestly, I'm really excited um, to have had this conversation with you. We've been friends for years, and you have always been and always um, continue to be a one of those people who are authentically you. Yeah, like
Mm.
when you show up, Amy, what I see about you is that you are going to brighten a space wherever
Mm.
that is. You're going to laugh. You're going to make people laugh, and you're going to find a way. If they don't laugh, like if you're the only one laughing, you're going to find a way to include people. And I noticed
Aw.
that I've noticed that about you over the years in like the conferences that I was a part, and even in just being in the room or in the environment or watching what you've done over the years. You're so inclusive. That's why Wider Tables really fits
Mm.
who you are.
Mm.
It's being inclusive. You're well read, well educated, but also well into people. You
Mm.
love people, and that's why I wanted to have you here. I thank you so much for joining us today. Is there anything that you want to kind of say to anyone that you think hasn't been said or you want to say?
I mean, thank you for all that, EC. That means so much to me. And right back at you, because I'm so happy that you're back in Chicago. I'm so happy to know you and your wife at this stage. I feel like both of your positive energy in mine and Kelly's life is like just what we need. So I'm so happy to be in friendship with you and so happy you're doing this. So let's keep it going, and I can't wait to hear all the other conversations. I mean, we'll
Yeah,
see how good,
yeah.
we'll see if they're as good, but let's see.
The next one is online. I do have one that's coming up after yours that we've already secured. Someone you might know as well. And I'm looking forward to that conversation. But this one has been not only enlightening. I've learned some things about about you, but I've also walked away with understanding, the value of being intentional about your
Mm.
space, and understanding the value about being intentional those around you, who you let in your space, who do you have at your table, and then being so, not just to take the words from someone we know,
Yes.
but honestly not worrying about others, the change in careers, and definitely deciding that, hey, my next is the best. Whatever that
Yes,
next
yes,
is
yes.
going to be the best, and lock it in. So I thank you for leaving us with those great principles of life. And I'm so glad that everyone else, you all joined Amy and I as we talked and had an on purpose conversation here. Look forward to talking to the rest of you the next time. And remember, you can be the best you when you serve others and become the best. And again, I never have this all taken out. This is kind of always off the top of my dome, but you can be the best you as really as you look to serve others and to give yourself, but also take care of yourself and become the best you. Thank you again for watching. And Amy, thank you again for being a part of an on purpose conversation. See you next time.